My son once looked me in the eye and told me I was a burden. He said it with the same mouth I fed, with the same voice I once comforted when he had nightmares as a boy. A burden. Do you know what it feels like when your own child reduces your life, your years of sacrifice, to that single ugly word? It cuts deeper than any wound I've ever known. But I want you to hear this clearly. I carried the word he gave me, and I sharpened it into a weapon. He thought he had buried me in silence and beige walls, hidden away in a nursing home to rot. What he didn't know was that I kept my mind, my memory, and my will. And when the moment came, I gave him a burden he will never forget. You see, my name is Dolores, and I am 78 years old. People hear my age and expect fragility, confusion, helplessness. They expect a woman bent under the weight of years, unable to fight back. But that's not me. Not now, not ever. I raised my son, Jason, on grit and scraped knuckles. I worked double shifts cleaning houses so he could go to college without shame in his shoes. I pawned my wedding ring to pay his tuition bill when the scholarship didn't stretch far enough. I scrubbed other people's floors until my fingers split and bled so he could have clean notebooks and packed lunches. Everything he is. Everything was built on my back. And yet, when he saw me faint in my own kitchen, when he saw the years settling on my shoulders, he didn't see a mother who had given him everything. He saw a problem to be managed. At first, I thought he was helping me. He said he wanted me to rest, to recover. He promised me comfort and care. But the ride in his car was silent, too silent. He wouldn't look at me, and when we pulled into the driveway of that nursing home, my heart knew. He wasn't giving me rest, he was giving me away. Jason called it the best place for you, Mom. Danielle, his wife, smiled at me with lips painted too red, too bright, and said, "You'll be safe here." Safe. That word stuck in my chest like a thorn. Safe meant out of their way. Safe meant locked up. Safe meant forgotten. When the papers slid across the counter, I noticed something strange. My name, written in a shaky scrawl, but not mine. Power of attorney, guardianship, all signed and notarized. They thought I wouldn't see it. They thought age had dimmed me. But I saw every line. My hand hadn't touched those documents, but Jason's ambition had. That night, I lay in the narrow bed of that room, staring at beige walls that smelled faintly of bleach and sadness. My mind raced through every memory: his laughter as a boy, the nights I stayed awake sewing patches on his jeans, the sacrifices stacked like bricks to build his future. And now, all of it dismissed with forged ink and greedy smiles. But here's what Jason never understood. I wasn't finished. They thought they had clipped my wings, but I was still watching, still thinking, still ready. So I began to plan. The first night in that nursing home was the longest of my life. The walls hummed with the faint buzz of fluorescent lights that never truly went dark. A television down the hall murmured endlessly, playing shows I didn't care for. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant, sharp and artificial, masking something older, something sadder, the heavy scent of lives paused and forgotten. The staff was kind enough, but their eyes told me the truth. To them, I was just another body in another bed, another chart to check off, another pill to hand out at the appointed time. They didn't know me. They didn't know the woman who raised a son on nothing but grit and determination. They didn't know the woman who once worked 3 jobs and still managed to sew a Halloween costume by hand because her boy had begged to be a pirate. They didn't know Dolores. But Jason knew. And that was why his betrayal burned so deep. I lay awake, replaying everything. The fainting spell in my kitchen. Jason showing up suddenly, insisting I stay just for a while. Danielle's smile. The papers. Those forged papers. My hand never touched them, yet somehow my signature was there, in jagged, unfamiliar strokes. Power of attorney. Guardianship. Legal words that sounded like chains. When the nurse brought me water that night, I asked quietly, "Do you have a pen and some paper?" She smiled, assuming I wanted to write a letter to family. In truth, I wanted to write my life. My defense. My proof. So I began. Every detail I could recall, I wrote it down. The dates, the names, the smells, the words spoken. I wrote it as if I were preparing a battle plan, because I was. This wasn't just about comfort anymore. This was war. And as the ink scratched across the page, I remembered things Jason had forgotten. Like the time I stood outside in the cold rain, waiting for the bus because I couldn't afford the gas for the car. Or the time I went without dinner so he could have seconds. Every sacrifice I made was fuel now, feeding the fire of my resolve. The next morning, Jason visited. He stood in the doorway of my room, hands tucked in his pockets, avoiding my eyes. Danielle hovered beside him, her perfume too sweet, cloying in the sterile air. "How are you settling in, Mom?" Jason asked, voice too light, too careful. I looked at him, really looked. My boy who once ran home with skinned knees and tear-streaked cheeks, the boy who used to beg me to hold him after nightmares. That boy was gone. In his place stood a man with a cold edge in his voice and greed in his eyes. "I'm comfortable enough," I said softly, though my hand rested on the papers I had written the night before. He didn't know I was already arming myself. Danielle leaned closer, her smile brittle. "You'll thank us one day. This is the best thing for everyone." Everyone. I almost laughed. Everyone but me. Later that week, I pretended to nap while two nurses chatted near my door. Their voices carried, careless, as they spoke of Jason. "He said he's managing her finances now," one whispered. "Must be nice, all that money at his fingertips." My blood turned cold. That was it. This wasn't just about control, this was about theft. About erasing me, taking everything I had built, everything I had saved, everything I had dreamed of leaving behind for Tyler, my grandson. The very next morning, I slipped a note into my pocket and asked one of the staff to mail it. It wasn't a letter to Jason. It wasn't a plea to Danielle. It was a call for help. A call to the only person I trusted to believe me and fight for me. Monica, my old friend and lawyer. They thought the nursing home walls had trapped me. They thought the ink on forged papers had silenced me. But I was Dolores. And I was just getting started. When I was younger, survival meant stretching $1 until it screamed. It meant working until my body ached, and then working some more. But now, survival meant something different. It meant reclaiming my voice, my rights, my freedom. And that required strategy. The letter I had slipped into the nurse's outgoing mail was short but sharp. Monica would know my handwriting anywhere. All I wrote was, "It isn't me. The signatures are false. I need you." Monica and I went back decades. She wasn't just my lawyer, she was once the girl who shared sandwiches with me in high school when neither of us had enough. We'd grown old together in parallel, and while I raised Jason and worked, she built a career in law, family, property, estates. She had once told me, "Dolores, if anyone ever tries to write your story for you, you call me. I'll set the record straight." And now, I was cashing in on that promise. It took 3 days, but when Monica walked into that nursing home, power followed her like a shadow. She wore her navy suit, the one that said she was here for business, not pleasantries. She hugged me quickly, whispered, "I believe you," and then got to work. I showed her the forged documents, my scrawled notes, everything I had written down like a soldier preparing for battle. Her sharp eyes scanned every line, and her lips pressed into a thin line. "Dolores, this is fraud," she said firmly. "Power of attorney doesn't mean he can erase you. And guardianship? That requires a court hearing, medical evaluations. If Jason cut corners, we'll prove it." Her words were like water in a desert. Hope surged through me. But Jason and Danielle weren't idle. The moment Monica filed motions to revoke the so-called guardianship and challenged the signatures, they pushed back. Jason stormed into the nursing home, red-faced, his voice raised. "Why are you doing this, Mom? Why can't you just accept help? You're not capable anymore." Capable. That word stung. He spoke it like a knife. I looked him straight in the eyes. "I may be old, Jason, but I'm not blind. And I'm not broken. You stole from me, but you won't win." Danielle tried to intervene, her tone syrupy sweet. "We're only thinking of what's best for you, Dolores." I laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "No, Danielle. You're thinking of what's best for yourselves." Behind them, Monica appeared, her presence like a wall between us. She handed Jason a notice, crisp and legal, stamped with the weight of the court. "You'll want to read this carefully," she said calmly. "Because as of now, every financial move you've made is under investigation." The color drained from Jason's face. Danielle's smile cracked. And for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear. But fear alone wasn't enough. I wanted justice. The hearings began weeks later. I stood before the court, frail in body, perhaps, but strong in spirit. Monica presented the evidence, my real signature compared against the forged one, the rushed filings, the lack of proper medical evaluations. She spoke with fire, her words slicing through the lies Jason had wrapped himself in. When Jason took the stand, he tried to play the role of the concerned son. His voice dripped with false sincerity as he told the judge, "I was only protecting her. She doesn't always remember things." But Monica was ready. She held up my journals, page after page of detailed notes, precise recollections of dates, times, conversations. "Does this look like confusion to you?" she asked. The judge's gaze hardened. Jason faltered. And in that moment, I felt something shift. The ground was no longer under his feet. It was under mine. The court revoked his so-called guardianship. The forged documents were declared void. And the judge issued an order for a forensic review of every dollar Jason had touched. It was the first battle, and I had won. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. Because while Jason had stolen control of my life, he was still sitting in my house. The home I had built brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck, memory by memory. He believed it was his now. But I was about to show him just how wrong he was. Taking back my rights was one victory. But taking back my home, that was the war. Jason had moved into my house as if he owned it, Danielle prancing around like she was queen of a kingdom she hadn't built. They hosted dinners in my dining room, clinked glasses in my living room, and laughed in the kitchen where I had once stood making Jason's favorite stew on winter nights. Every corner of that house held a memory. Memories they had tried to claim as theirs. But now, with Monica's guidance and the court's backing, the tables began to turn. The forensic audit revealed what I already suspected. Jason had drained accounts, moved funds, and even refinanced the house in his own name, all under the false authority of those forged papers. Monica presented it all to the judge with a precision that cut deeper than any blade. This wasn't oversight. This wasn't care. This was theft, she declared. The judge didn't just agree, he acted. Jason was ordered to vacate the property. Danielle, too. But here's the cruel irony. The financial mess Jason had created left the house tied up in liens and back payments. Selling it was the only way to untangle the knot he had made. When I heard the words "court-ordered sale," it felt like a dagger to the chest. My house, my sanctuary, was going on the market. Jason smirked across the courtroom, believing he had finally found a way to win. "Without that house, what does she have left?" he whispered to Danielle, not knowing I could hear him. But Jason had always underestimated me. Always. Because I didn't just lose a house. I gained an opportunity. Monica worked her magic, setting up a trust, arranging quiet financing, maneuvering around every obstacle Jason had left behind. And when the house was listed, she made sure I had a seat at the table. Jason expected some stranger to buy it. He imagined me watching helplessly as another family moved into the home I had built. He wanted that final twist of the knife. But when the day of the sale came, the look on his face was worth every sleepless night, every tear, every battle. Because I was the buyer. And when the papers were signed, when the gavel came down, the house was mine again, legally, irrevocably, undeniably mine. Jason erupted, his voice booming in the courtroom. "You can't do this. This isn't fair." Danielle clutched his arm, her face pale with fury. "She tricked us." I stood slowly, leaning on my cane, but my voice carried stronger than it had in years. "No, Jason. You tricked yourself. You sold the very house you tried to steal." The room fell silent. Even the judge looked at me with something like respect. But I wasn't done. Because while I had reclaimed ownership, I had no intention of stepping back into a home that had been poisoned by their betrayal. So I did something bold. Something unexpected. Something that would remind Jason every single day of what he had lost. I bought the house right next door. The first morning after moving in, I sat on my new porch with a steaming cup of coffee, staring across the yard at my old home. Jason and Danielle were still packing their boxes, their faces tight with anger and humiliation. Tyler, my sweet grandson, ran up the walk and into my arms, laughing as though none of the chaos had touched him. His laughter was my victory anthem. Jason froze when he saw us. For a moment, his face crumpled, torn between shame and rage. Danielle tugged at his sleeve, but he couldn't look away. I smiled, not with cruelty, but with a quiet, unshakable strength. "Good morning, Jason," I called softly across the lawn. He said nothing. Because what could he say? He had gambled everything, my trust, my love, my home, and lost it all. And now, every time he looked out his window, he would see me. Not broken. Not gone. But standing taller than ever, in the house next door. The home may have changed, but the war was over. And I had won. The weeks that followed were quiet in a way I hadn't known for years. Not empty quiet. Peaceful. My new home wasn't large, it didn't have the history etched into its walls the way my old house did, but it was mine. Chosen by me. Paid for by me. Defended by me. And that made all the difference. Jason and Danielle moved out in bitter silence. I watched them from my porch as they hauled boxes to a truck, their eyes darting to me, then away. Danielle looked at me once, and in that moment I saw something I hadn't before: fear. Not fear of me, but fear of what she had tied herself to. She had joined Jason in betrayal, and now she was paying the price alongside him. A month later, word spread quietly that Danielle had left him. Packed her things, disappeared. Maybe she realized the man she had clung to wasn't a provider, but a parasite. Maybe she realized I wasn't the enemy she had imagined. Either way, I felt no malice toward her anymore. Her absence was her own punishment. Jason, though, was different. He tried, once, to come to me. He knocked on my door one evening, his silhouette small against the fading light. When I opened the door, Tyler was sitting on the couch behind me, coloring in one of his books. "Mom," Jason began, his voice raw, I made mistakes. But I was just trying to." I held up a hand. "Calm. Steady." "No, Jason. You were trying to take. There's a difference. You forgot who I was. You forgot what I gave. And now you must live with what you chose." His mouth opened, then closed. His eyes flicked past me to Tyler. The boy looked up, his smile unguarded, pure. And in that moment, Jason turned away. Perhaps he couldn't bear to see what he had lost. Perhaps he realized his betrayal had built a wall between us too high to climb. He walked down the steps and never returned. Tyler became the light in my life. Every weekend he came running across the yard, his laughter echoing between the two houses like a bridge between past and present. With him, I found healing. We baked cookies together, planted flowers in the garden, and filled the walls of my new home with memories that belonged only to us. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip low, Tyler leaned against me and whispered, "Grandma, I like your house better than the other one. This one feels happy." Tears pricked my eyes, but I smiled. Out of the mouths of children comes the truest wisdom. He was right. My old house had been built with sweat and sacrifice, but this house was built with survival and strength. It wasn't just a home. It was proof. Proof that I could be broken, betrayed, and left for nothing, yet rise stronger than before. I thought about all the women I had known in my life, women who had been overlooked, silenced, discarded as they grew older. I thought about how many of them had stories like mine, betrayals hidden behind family doors, battles fought in silence. And I realized my story wasn't just for me. It was for them, too. So I wrote it all down, every detail, every truth, not just for courts or lawyers this time, but for Tyler, for the generations that would follow. I wanted him to know that strength isn't about how much you can lift, but how much you can endure and still stand tall. The house next door became a reminder to Jason of what he had thrown away. But for me, it became something else entirely, a monument to resilience. Because they thought they could erase me. They thought they could steal what was mine. They thought they could write the ending to my story. But the ending was mine to write, and I chose one word for it: victory.